Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another Beyond 20 webinar. I'm Lindsay. I'm here to introduce your lovely speaker for today and give you a few housekeeping notes before we get started. First of all, on that note, if you guys have any questions throughout the presentation today, just go ahead and type them into the comment box there on the right side of your screen. I'll keep an eye on them as we go throughout and relay them to Erica so she can get them answered for you as we go. If we, for some reason, run out of time while we're working there, we'll be sure to get back to you after the presentation today so you're all taken care of on that front. Otherwise, your speaker today is Erica Flora. She's a principal at Beyond 20. She's an ITIL expert, of course, and has over 10 years experience teaching ITIL as well as doing implementations at various organizations, assessments, consulting, and the like. So she's got a lot of knowledge to share in terms of the schema itself and getting certified, but also in terms of how this stuff is practical, which routes you should take depending on what your job function is and area of interest and all of that. So we're looking forward to a really great webinar. We encourage you to participate, and without further ado, I will pass it over to Erica.
So this is me, Erica Flora, for any of you guys that saw the fantastic e-blast that Lindsay sent out. She said I was a secret weapon. So I think if I'm going to be a weapon, I'd like my name to be the machete. And I have been doing this for a very long time. I am a PMP certified project manager, and I'm also what's called ITIL expert certified. I've been working on IT service management projects for quite some time, helping put tools in place, help revamp processes, do ITIL assessments, help organizations figure out where they're trying to go, and see how we can best apply the IT service management tools to get them there. So a little bit about Beyond 20. The name Beyond 20 actually comes from a Gartner research study that looked at when mission critical systems within an organization failed, what the root cause was. And they actually found that only 20% of the time it was due to failures in things like hardware, software, natural disasters. That actually 80% of the time when mission critical things fail, they were able to trace it back to failure in people and failure in process. So someone makes a change and doesn't think about the impact to the organization, or doesn't realize what that impact would be, or there is no process, or the process is too bureaucratic. So that's really what we're passionate about. That's what we help organizations tackle. And so everything ITIL is really what we do, from training to assessments, consulting, implementation, all of the above. We are also a registered educational provider with PMI and an accredited training organization through APMG. So for those of you that need PDUs, professional development units, this webinar gives you one. Okay, so let's talk about what is ITIL. So for some of you, I think you're probably wondering, okay, what's after foundations? For some of you, you may never have taken an ITIL class whatsoever. So we'll do a mini little, what is ITIL? What does that acronym stand for? And why should we care about it? So when you hear the acronym ITIL, it stands for the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. The key word here being library. It's really just a set of books. And what you guys see on the screen is the cover page of the 5 books, the actual source material that everything about IT service management comes from. So when you hear the acronym ITIL, it really is just the books. So organizations don't really implement ITIL because that's like saying we implement encyclopedias. It really is all around this subject of IT service management. That's the core essence of the books, or the core subject of the books. And how it came to be is it came out of the British government in the 1980s. And what's kind of fascinating about it is unlike other things like CMMI that came out of academia, this came out of industry. And it was because the British government, the IT department of the British government, was really struggling to answer some basic questions. Things like, what services do we provide? How much are those services costing us? What's the value of those services? There's still things that I think organizations struggle with to this day. And so what they did is they had the good sense to say, well, surely somebody else has figured out this IT thing and has, has come out on the other side of this pain. And so what they did was they did a 7-year study. They looked at 2,500 different organizations worldwide, small companies, large companies across all industries, looked at private sector, public sector, and came back with all that information, and that really was what formed the books. So since they were created in the 1980s, they've gone through a couple of iterations. They've made them now into nice books, and they've put a whole certification around it. But the subject of those books I'd mentioned previously is all around this thing called IT service management. And what that means is, how do we develop our capabilities as an organization? How do we take what we're really, really good at, and how do we make or provide services that our customers find value in, that are unique, and that allow us to be more of a consultative partner to our customers, to the business. Instead of just being thought of as a provider of technology and a commodity, how do we really provide this unique value add? And that's what the books really speak to and help IT organizations do. So this here is the life cycle. It's called the IT Service Management Life Cycle, and there's 5 phases. They align with the 5 different books that I just showed you guys. And what you're looking at here is really the core around what ITIL is built on. And it uses this kind of framework to organize all of the processes, all of the ideas within the books. If you look at the middle, there's this phase called service strategy. This gives a lot of guidance around figuring out what kind of service provider are we going to be? What is our strategy? Are we lowest cost? Are we most value add? Are we highest quality? How do we move our organization forward? How do we move our customers forward? And let's figure that strategy piece out. As we get requests for new services, those are going to be chartered, and then we move into a phase called service design. This phase talks about all the things that we need to be thinking about while that service is being designed, so that we end up with something that is really cool, that's really what our customers want. So service design, then you move into service transition. This is where, if you've heard of processes like change management, configuration management, knowledge management, these are all processes that allow us to go from that design into service operation, and it be a successful transition, that we don't end up with surprises and we end up with happy customers at the end of it. And then service operation, most of you guys are probably familiar with the stuff that goes on in service operation. This is concerned with making sure that, as things fail, we get services back up very quickly. We do root cause analysis. We make sure that day in and day out, those services are doing what our customers expect of us. And then if you look around the outside, you'll see this book this phase called Continual Service Improvement. And this is all around making sure that we as service providers get better over time, that we're always looking for ways to improve our processes, our services, our people, our technology. And so it really speaks to things like, what do we measure? How do we assess our organization? How do we address organizational change? How do we make sure that there's this culture of improvement, so that 5 years from now, we're still that value add that customers clamor to us for and see value in what we're doing? Okay, so why does all this stuff matter? Why should you guys care at all? Why even care about the qualification schema and trying to figure out what's in there? It's for a lot of great reasons. Most Fortune 500 companies are doing something with the concepts in the ITIL books. They're using these IT service management concepts. So if you work in IT, you're going to bump into this kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that you know and understand the concepts within the ITIL books. If you haven't got certification, one of the ITIL certifications, I highly recommend it. If you look at the bottom of this slide, it's consistently ranked as one of the highest paying certifications in IT. And I've had a number of students attend our classes and say, you know what, because I have these 4 little letters on my resume, I'm getting into the interview. I mean, it doesn't necessarily get you the job, but A lot of organizations are just kind of inundated with resumes, and in order to kind of pare down who they're going to talk to, the easiest way to do that is by looking for acronyms that folks would have. And so having ITIL on your resume is tremendous. Even in a down economy, it's a really good thing to have. And I'm seeing a lot more government organizations, a lot more private organizations actually put preferred, we'd like to see ITIL foundations or something equivalent in job requisitions. So if you haven't seen it, you will continue to see it more. Most CIOs, when surveyed, will say that they are doing something with ITIL or they have it on their roadmap. Okay, so let's talk about certification. I will give you a warning. This next slide is a little bit busy, so bear with me. I will talk us through it, and hopefully it'll all make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, ask me questions, and I will try my best to get those answered. All right, so what you're looking at here is the super confusing certification schema for ITIL. The way you have to look at this is kind of like, it's like getting a degree in service management. So if you look at the bottom of each of the boxes, you'll see that there's credits there. And when you take each of those classes and then take the certification exam and pass the exam, you get that many credits. So if you look at the very top, you'll see something called ITIL Expert. That's the highest that you can go in the certification path. And in order to get to ITIL Expert, you've got to have 22 credits for that. Now, if you look at the very bottom of this chart, you'll see that there's something called Foundations. That's the most popular course. That's what everybody is familiar with, and that's where everyone starts. You need Foundations to get to any of the other classes. And so Foundations, that is a 3-day class, and that gives you 2 credits towards ITIL Expert. So, just 20 more credits after that. No biggie, right? So you start with Foundations, and then once you have Foundations, you can take any of the intermediate classes that you so choose. Now, if you look over to the right of Foundations, you'll see this little thing here that we put PR. That's for something called ITIL Practitioner. It is a brand new course that Axelos has come out with. We'll talk through what that means, but in order to take that practitioner course, which will be a 2-day course, you need to take Foundations. So Foundations is really the prerequisite for everything. We will talk about practitioner. Let me spend a little bit of time talking about the stuff above that line, above Foundations. So if you look towards the left, you'll see this thing that says Lifecycle, and you'll see the 5 courses. Each of these are a course specific to one phase in the service lifecycle. So you can take a 3-day course just on service strategy or just on service design or so on and so forth. Those 5 classes, they are each 3 days in length, and once you pass the exam for that class, they give you 3 credits. So if you were to take strategy, design, transition, operation, and CSI, that would give you 15 credits. So we'll talk more about the life cycle courses, but just to kind of orient you on where we are, I wanted to give you a sense of what the life cycle courses are. Now, if you look over to the right, these are the capability courses. Same processes as you talk about in the 5 phases, or yeah, the 5 phases or the 5 stages, but the processes are broken up a little bit differently. SOA stands for Service Offerings and Agreements. That deals with a lot of like service strategy, service design types of processes. PPO stands for Planning, Protection, and Optimization. That's a lot of your service design processes. There's a lot of processes in service design. RCV stands for Release, Control, and Validation. Those are mainly your service transition processes, so things like change, knowledge, configuration, all the stuff preparing you to go from design into operation, that's covered in RCV. And then OSA stands for Operational Support and Analysis. Those are a lot of your service operation types of processes. So if you guys have heard of these processes called like incident management or problem management, request fulfillment, all that stuff is covered in OSA. Each of those classes on the right, your capability classes, are 4 days in length, and each of them, once you pass the exam, they give you 4 credits. So if you were to take all the classes on the right, that would give you 16 credits. But you don't have to stick with the capability or the lifecycle classes. You can mix and match these however you want. But once you get 15 credits at that middle level, however you decide to do it, you are then eligible to take a capstone class called Managing Across the Lifecycle. That is a 4-day class. It gives you 5 credits, and then once you pass MALC, you pass that exam, you automatically become an ITIL expert. You get the designation of ITIL expert. Now, how you should look at training, I always tell students, you got to look at training the same way that you look at the concepts in the ITIL books. You don't ever want to implement everything in ITIL just to check a box and say that we're now doing ITIL. The way that you have to look at the concepts in the books is you want to look at it like a tool. You want to use these concepts that are here to address a pain point or to reach a goal within your organization. So, for example, if you're having issues with change management, well, then you probably want to look in the service transition book and say, okay, what concepts here can we start implementing as an organization that's going to make our life easier? And I would say you've got to look at training the same way that you look at ITIL in general. You want to look at training in order to address a pain point or to reach a goal. So what I always tell folks is if you're in an organization where you just want to understand the concepts, how they all fit together, and talk intelligently with other folks in your organization, Foundations is a great course to take. If, however, let's say that someone says to you, oh, you are now the process owner and you are in charge of a process called incident management, well, then you probably need a lot more subject matter expertise in that area, and you probably want to look at taking one or more of the intermediate classes. So if, let's say, someone tells you you are now in charge of incident management and improving that in the organization, you probably want to look at like a service operations class or an OSA class. The real beauty that the intermediate classes give you is deep subject matter expertise in a few processes, and whereas Foundations just gives you a foundational understanding, you understand the terms, you understand the what, in the intermediate classes, you really dig into the details, you understand the why behind it, and a bit of the how, like how do I improve this process, how do I measure it, how do I make this better, what are the key performance indicators that I need to be reporting to upper management to let them know that that things are working as they should. So it gives you a lot more practical tools at this intermediate level than you have at Foundations. And then if, let's say, you're interested in leading an entire IT service management transformation in your organization, you're interested in training, you're interested in consulting, going all the way to ITIL Expert would be something that would be really, really valuable. There's a tremendous demand for folks that have a deep subject matter expertise in all of this stuff. So going to ITIL Expert is definitely worth an investment. And that's my 2 cents. Okay, so who should attend an ITIL class? I really think that anyone in IT is going to get value from attending an ITIL Foundations class. I actually see a lot of project managers attend our classes, plus you also get 24 PDUs for those of you that are my PMPs. I think it's really important for project managers to actually get training in ITIL because anytime that you introduce some of the concepts in this book, you're introducing change to an organization, and it's requiring project management skills to make that project successful. So I think that there's tremendous value, and in fact, there's another webinar that we have. You guys can check out our YouTube channel that's called A Project Manager's Guide to ITIL. So it speaks exactly to what project managers care about, and there's certain things within the ITIL framework that are much more relevant to project managers. Anyone that's sitting on a service desk absolutely should come to an ITIL Foundations class. I mean, service desk folks, you guys are the front line of IT, and customers are forming an opinion of IT on their interactions with you. I would also say IT management. If you are managing folks in IT, this is a really good starting point to make sure that your folks are working in the right direction in the right way. Now, bears, definitely not allowed. Small children, that may be on a case-by-case basis, but definitely no bears. It's super distracting. We have a ban. We have a complete ban on them. Okay, so let's talk about foundations. This is where everyone starts. It is the prerequisite to all other ITIL classes. It is a 3-day course, and at the end of that 3-day course, there's a 1-hour, 40-question multiple choice exam. So the exam, it is a little bit challenging. There are some difficult questions on the exam, but it's really asking and making sure that you understand the language of ITIL, so basic concepts, basic terminology. And this is just a picture from one of our classes. We do a lot of interaction and drawing on the walls and things like that, and I just thought this was too cute not to post. This one here, we talk about the different types of service desk, and the creativity that comes out of students is just really super cool. So there are no prerequisites to attend a foundations class. You just sign up, come to class. You also don't need to do anything to maintain your certification, so no continuing credits. And we like to say that there's also no zombies. So if you were worried, no longer be worried. Okay, so let's talk about our intermediate classes. So this is where you really start to develop some of that deep subject matter expertise in a few processes. This is one of our students. We love having fun in our classes, and so the occasional costume gets pulled out of the closet, and we always tell people, when you prepare for an exam, you've got to put your exam hat on. So this is one of our students actually wearing his exam hat. And then when you're talking about intermediate classes, there's 2 different types. There's what's called your Lifecycle classes, your capability classes, and this is just a summary of the difference between them. So your Lifecycle courses, each of those are going to be 3 days. Your capability courses, each of those are 4 days. They also have a bit of a different focus. Lifecycle courses tend to be more high level. They're more appropriate for like folks at the management level, whereas capability courses, because they have an extra day, they're 4 days in length, this is really more focused on the day-to-day practitioner. So like if you own a process, if you're a process manager, this really digs into like what are all the activities in a particular process, how would I improve upon this process. It's really more for the day-to-day. I think the capability courses are a ton of fun because they are very, very hands-on. All right, so again, life cycle courses, there are 5 of them, 3 credits each. At the end of the life cycle courses, so the exams get a little bit different when you start talking about the intermediate courses. At the foundations level, you've got 40 questions, multiple choice. It's very, they want to just see, do you understand the concepts? When you get to intermediate, they really want to see, can you take these concepts? Yeah, you have the book knowledge now, but can you take your book knowledge and can you actually apply it within an organization? And I think that's so important because, you don't want somebody to walk in and say, yeah, I have advanced ITIL certifications and I can spout all the concepts from the book, but I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to help this organization get better. And so that's really what these exams start to do. So instead of 40 questions, you only have 8. You do get an hour and a half to answer those 8 questions, but they're what's called scenario-based, and they're gradient scored. So what I mean by that is each of the 8 questions, you're going to get a scenario. Here's what's going on in the organization. Here's the challenges that they're facing. And each of the answers, A, B, C, and D, is going to give you a different approach on how you would tackle the specific stuff that's going on in an organization. And your best answer will give you 5 points, your second best answer gives you 3 points, your third best answer gives you 1 point, and then there's this, what we call a sexy distractor. That sounds good, it's the book knowledge, but it doesn't really help the organization solve the problem that it's having. So I think the exams, they are a bit more challenging, but they full thought behind it of what they're trying to get you to do and how they want you to think. So these are the life cycle courses. The capability courses, there are 4 of them, and these spell out what I was talking about before. These are 4 days in length. Same deal, 8 questions, scenario-based. You have 1.5 hours to get each of those, to get through that exam. One of the things, too, I haven't mentioned is that once you get into the intermediate courses, we spend a lot more time talking through, how to approach these exams, how to be thinking about, like I was saying before, the scenario type of thing, and how you should really be approaching the exam, and how really you should approach ITIL as you're trying to implement it. One of the things that we do that's a bit different than other organizations is all of our instructors, when we're not in the classroom, we're actually out implementing this stuff with organizations. So we have a lot of time to, to spend with students and talk through, this is what we're seeing in different organizations. This is what might work, what where you're going to run into challenges and where you're going to run into issues. So our whole goal is to have you leave class not only having passed the exam and being successful on the exam, but really having a good understanding of how do I do this stuff, and take some tools back with you to your workplace so you can start making an impact. With that said, we do guarantee the quality of all of our classes, so if you go through the exam and you don't pass, we help you prepare and take it again, and we actually eat the cost of the retake. So, so it does lessen some of the stress. This 8-question exam should not scare you. All right, so once you've gone through all your intermediate classes that you're going to take and you have enough credits to take the capstone, this is the 4-day class called MALC, or Managing Across the Lifecycle. It is 4 days. Same thing, 8-question exam, but you have 2 hours on this one. And this one's a little bit different because what they do is they give you 1 case study. So instead of 8 different questions, 8 different scenario, or 8 different case studies and 8 different approaches on the scenarios, you actually get 1 big long case study that talks through in detail, here's the organization, here's what's going on in multiple different processes. And MALC is a little bit different in its approach because in the intermediate classes, what you are doing is you're saying, this is how I would apply this process to this situation. In MALC, you're looking across the organization and you're saying, okay, if the organization is weak in this process, what else could this have an impact on? Or if I improve this process, what is that going to have an impact on? Because you're not, you don't just think in silos, kind of like what has you were learning in the intermediate classes. You have to now think about the entire organization. So it's a little bit of a change in approach, but it really allows you to step up a bit, look across the organization and say, where are my impacts? What are the things I need to be thinking about? What's the big picture and the strategy? So really, really cool course. We actually spend a lot of time just drawing out all of the processes, all of the impacts that they have on one another, and it's really, really cool. So let's talk about virtual courses. So any of the intermediate courses, we do them about once a month. You can attend virtually. So you can attend from home or from work. Once you get to the intermediate level, you have to take an ITIL intermediate course from an approved ATO with an approved instructor in order to be able to take the exam. You can't just decide you want to self-study and take the exam. Because these get so much harder, you really need to have interaction with an instructor and really try to learn the stuff at a much deeper level. Okay, let's talk about this brand new thing. So Axelos, who designs all of the courses and that kind of thing, just announced a couple of months ago that there's going to be a new course, and it's called the ITIL Practitioner. So it's actually not going to be something that we offer until Q4 of 2015 because the exam does not yet exist. It's still being hashed out, but it is something that we will start offering at the end of this year. With Practitioner, all you need is ITIL Foundations. It is a 2-day course. If you decide to take them together, it would be a 5-day course that you would take beginning to end. The thought behind the ITIL Practitioner course is that this is where you really get into the how. And so there's going to be a big focus on continual service improvement and taking the concepts from that CSI book. and saying, yeah, okay, now I know all the concepts from ITIL Foundations, but what do I do with that? A lot of times students say, okay, great, I know some of these concepts, but I just need a little bit more on the practical side of how I start to implement that, and that's really what Practitioner is going to really bring to the table. It's also going to talk about interesting new topics like tools. How do we use tools to automate what we're doing? What do we do with cloud services? How do we integrate ITIL with some of this other stuff that we're hearing, like Lean and Lean Six Sigma and Lean IT and DevOps and Agile and Scrum and something else called SIAM. So how do we make all this stuff play well together? And the good news is the ITIL books and the concepts there do play well with lots of other standards, frameworks. We use it a lot in combination with project management, frameworks, Agile, Scrum, COVIT, CMMI, Six Sigma. I mean, it really is something that I'm now seeing a lot of organizations say, we're not just doing one thing. We're using best practice from a lot of different places. So how do we make all this stuff play well together? And so that's really what this practitioner course is aimed to do, and that will be coming later on in the year. Okay, so what else? For those of you that just want to learn the concepts but really aren't interested in certification, that's fine. There's still plenty of stuff that you can do to educate yourself about these concepts. So we offer a couple of different things. We have an executive level ITIL awareness you can take as a half-day course. You can take it as a full-day course. We have ITIL awareness. We also have these simulation events. If you guys have not seen an ITIL simulation event, they are crazy fun. I am so not kidding. It's kind of like board game / video game / interactive activity that everyone takes part in over the course of a day. If you are looking to change the culture in your organization, if you are looking to bring champions over to your side, if you're the only one that's like, oh my gosh, we need to be doing this, and you want to get other people excited about IT service management, a simulation event is fantastic. I can't even tell you guys. It's amazing. I wish I had had some of my prior companies go through them back when I was early on in IT service management, because it's so much fun. It teaches you the concepts without having to sit through a lecture. And what's really cool about it is people embrace the concepts in ITIL because they actually start building stuff, and they don't even realize that they're learning the concepts, but you see them start to build like a configuration management database. You see them build a knowledge base. You see the service desk reorganize itself. It's really, really cool. I highly recommend, if you guys have not seen it, to check it out. All right, so let's talk about some upcoming classes. We have public classes on the calendar every month in Washington, D.C. and the D.C. metro area. Also in Boston, we've recently started adding those classes as well, and our next classes in each of those cities are going to be in June. In Phoenix and San Diego, we hold them every few months, I'd say at least once a quarter. In Phoenix, our next class is in July, and in San Diego, our next class is in September. Yeah, these are, like it says here, really fun, interactive, and we do have the 100% pass guarantee. Also, if you've got some folks at your organization that you would prefer to have us come out and teach on site, we do quite a bit of that, and getting everyone in your organization through something like an ITIL Foundations class or putting them through a simulation event, I just see some really cool things come out of that. You will have much more interesting and productive conversations when a good number of people in your organization understand what all the words mean, see the value in it, and you're able to make a lot of progress that way. Okay, let's open it up to questions. So, Lindsay, if you would help me manage some of these questions that have come in, that would be fabulous.
You got it. We've got a couple that are around our training specifically. I wonder if we want to jump into that first since you were just there talking about that. Got a question for a little bit of clarification around the pass guarantee. What if we fail? And there was another question about the exam. Do we have to take that on site or can we take it elsewhere?
Okay, so let me tackle the exam one first. So let me take the foundations class, for example. If you take the 3-day foundations class, you come to class, you're physically in the room, moderately, interacting with the rest of the group, and doing the assignments that you're given. We guarantee that you pass. So in the event that you don't, you just send your instructor a quick email like, yay, I get to take it again. And we will set you up with activities to make sure that you're refreshed. We will even schedule a phone call if you want to go through some of the concepts, if some of the things are not so clear. And then we set you up with a retake. That can be online, that can be in person, whatever you're most comfortable doing. And then we pay for the retake and you retake it until you pass. Yeah, so with that said, you pay for your class and it's all inclusive. It includes everything, including the exam pass guarantee.
And what score do you have to get to pass?
Yes, so out of the 40 questions, you have to get 26 correct. So it's about 65%, which sounds like, oh, that's easy. That's like a D in school. But as you will see, going through the class, there's a lot there. There's about 25 different processes that you have to know. You have to understand the differences between. There's terminology within each of those processes that you have to understand. You have to know where they sit within that service lifecycle. So there's a lot to keep straight in your brain. And I call them sick and twisted folks that write the exam, put some difficult questions in there. They give you some easy and some medium questions, but there are some ones that cause you to stop and think. There are some complex questions that, for example, they'll give you 4 statements and they'll say which of the following statements are correct. And answer A will be, well, 1, 2, and 3 are correct. And B will say, well, none of those are correct. And C will say, well, 1 and 4 are correct. So you really have to know the material. But we do a lot of things in the class to make sure that you do know the material and you walk into the exam very, very confident. We do all sorts of different things like crossword puzzles, and we draw mind maps and activities, and just make sure that every single student walks out of there confident and ready to take on the world.
All right, we've got one jumping back to the conversation about the intermediate classes, the manager, practitioner, all of that business. Do you have to take courses from either side of the fence there? Can you take all lifecycle classes or all capability classes? How does that work to get up to milk?
Yeah, so you can pick and choose the classes however you want to take them. So we basically run about 1 class a month, and for a lot of students, they just pick whatever works with their schedule. I would definitely recommend taking CSI. That is a really good class, and when you get to Malc, you will be tested a lot on CSI, Continual Service Improvement. Plus, it's a really good course just to start with because it teaches you, like, okay, how do we take where we are as an organization and improve? How do we get better? And so it gives you lots of tools around that. And service strategy, whether you take the SOA course or service strategy, you'll want to take something in the area of service strategy to be well prepared if you're going to take Malc. But you can take all 5 of the life cycle. That's totally great. You can take all 4 of the capability, or you can pick whatever ones strike your fancy. They're all going to be good courses. You probably don't want to take too many courses that overlap because you'll cover a lot of the same material and you won't get as much learning as if you were to take a variety. But I'm happy to talk, if you guys are interested in specific courses, I can certainly go over that. But you don't need to take both in order to complete an ITIL expert. You just need to get 15 credits, and you decide however you want to get those 15 credits at that intermediate level.
We've got a couple questions around pricing, so I'm just going to combine them into one long rambling question.
Oh, great.
First of all, on the easier side, just asking in general how much the courses cost. Obviously, they vary, so maybe drill down a little bit. We've got another question. If you want to get up through MALC in the next 12 to 18 months, is there some sort of training pass or anything available via us to kind of facilitate that and move it along a little bit more quickly?
Yes, so for a foundations course, you're looking at about $1,000. I don't have the site in front of me, so I'm completely guessing on prices. But yeah, that's what you're looking at for foundations. The intermediate classes are around 2,000, 2,500, I believe, for each of the courses. But we do have a training pass, and we're happy to send you information on that. I want to say it's $8,000 or $9,000 beginning to end. It's good for 2 years. And so you can take as many courses as you need to get to ITIL Expert, and I believe that that price is about 40% off of the price if you were to buy all those classes individually.
Okay, so going back to intermediate a little bit, we've got a question about whether or not those are available online. I guess MALC as well.
Oh, so you can take any of our classes virtually, but they're not self-paced. So if that's what you mean by online, we have a self-paced course at the foundations level, but we don't have self-paced at the intermediate, just because you lose out so much on that interactivity, and we find that folks aren't as successful on the exam if you do it on a self-paced versus if you do it in the classroom. So you can attend the classroom virtually, but we don't offer self-paced once you get to the intermediate level.
Okay, we've got one around the MALC questions. Are they multiple choice as well?
They are. So MALC has taken a few different iterations. The current version is 8 questions, multiple choice, and you have 2 hours to complete it. So yeah, it's now very, very similar to how the rest of the, how all the intermediate classes are. The only difference is you've got one big case study. You do get it before class, which is kind of cool. So you can go through it and say, okay, which processes here are strong, which processes are weak, which processes do they not mention in the case study, and you can start to formulate, okay, this is how I would start to approach what's going on in this company. So it's different in the way that the case study is done, but very similar in the format of the exam itself.
Okay, we've got a couple of these questions, so we might as well answer them publicly. Is there a separate fee for the exam, the foundations exam?
It's all inclusive, and in all of our classes you actually take the exam in class. So the last day of class is when you take the exam. We take it on paper, and so you're able to write all over the exam itself. Make notes to yourself. If you want to dump concepts out onto paper, you can certainly do that. And then that gets sent off to CSME for grading.
Looks like the last one we've got here. Erica, do you teach the class?
I do, yeah, I'm one of the instructors. So there's a number of us. In fact, I just taught a class this past week, and yeah. So as soon as you sign up for a class, we actually will send you a course information sheet that will say, here's all the logistics, here's how you get there, here's start times, end times, and it'll have a bio on your instructor. So, what they've done in their career. All of our instructors have been doing this for at least 10 years, and so you'll get somebody that's super cool, maybe even cooler than me.
I can't imagine that would be possible. But just the last one, I promised the last one. What do you have to do to get certified to teach?
Oh, to teach. Okay, so to teach, it's interesting. You need, I want to say it's 11 credits to be able to teach. You also have to, if you want to teach any of the intermediate classes, you also have to be certified at that intermediate, for that intermediate class. So all of our instructors have not only gotten to ITIL Expert, but they have also gone back and taken all of the classes. I would say for the most part, all of us have gone back and taken every class that you could possibly take and every exam you can possibly take. So you do need, at a minimum, foundations and then a few of the intermediate classes to be able to teach. You also need to be associated with an accredited training organization to be able to to be qualified to teach under their umbrella. So there's definitely some hoops you have to go through. I'm familiar with like the PMP, and in order to teach the PMP exam, you have to have passed the exam. That's the only prerequisite that you have. In order to be able to teach ITIL, you have to jump through a lot more hoops than just become foundation certified. You really have to know what you're talking about because there's so much material there. I didn't mention this earlier, but each of those source material books is anywhere from 300 to 500 pages, and you have to know the stuff that's in there. You just have to. I still get questions. I've been teaching foundations for years, and I still get questions that cause me to pause and go, I haven't heard that before. Let me think about that. And sometimes, I have to go back to the books myself and say, okay, what does the actual source material say is this nuanced concept? But for us, every instructor that steps into a room, every Beyond 20 instructor at a minimum is ITIL Expert certified. Typically has a lot more certifications than just that.
I think that's all we've got.
Cool. So we'll be posting this on our YouTube channel. I don't know, Lindsay, if we've got anything else.
No, I think we can let these nice people go on about their day.
Okay. But thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Here's all my contact information. If you have questions, please follow up and ask. We'll also be following up with everyone. Just a follow-up email. If you are needing to claim your PDU to maintain your PMP certification, we'll send that information as well.